A new beginning, Katie stood at the doorstep of her new home in Colorado, the brisk mountain air brushing against her cheeks. The house was old but had a kind of charm that she couldn't resist, with its rustic brick walls, weathered shutters, and a small front porch that sagged ever so slightly under its years. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers, a refuge she desperately needed after the turmoil of her recent life. She had left behind not just a marriage, but a dream. Katie had always imagined herself raising a family, children filling her home with laughter and love. But life had not unfolded the way she envisioned. Her marriage to Stephen had crumbled under the weight of years of trying and failing to conceive. The endless doctor's appointments, the painful treatments, and the emotional toll of infertility had worn them both down. In the end, they had parted ways not with anger, but with a quiet resignation that their paths were no longer aligned. Now in her late 30s, Katie found herself standing at a crossroads. She could either continue mourning the life she thought she would have or start anew, creating something different, something beautiful in its own way. That was why she had bought this house in Colorado, nestled in the foothills of the Rockies, far from the bustling city life she had once known. It was her chance for a fresh start, a blank canvas on which she could paint the next chapter of her life. Katie walked through the empty rooms of her new home, her footsteps echoing in the silence. The floors creaked under her weight, and the walls, though in need of some fresh paint, felt sturdy. She could see the potential in every corner, imagining how she could transform each space. The living room, with its large windows, would be perfect for cozy winter evenings by the fireplace. The kitchen, though small, had an old-fashioned charm that reminded her of the home she grew up in, where her mother would bake cookies on Saturday afternoons. But it wasn't just the house that needed work. Deep down, Katie knew she was searching for something more, something beyond just fixing up a home. She longed to be a mother, to nurture and care for a child. It was a dream that had been buried under years of heartbreak, but here, in this new place, the desire bubbled to the surface once again. Late one evening, after a long day of painting the living room, Katie sat down at her kitchen table with a cup of tea. She absent-mindedly scrolled through her phone looking for inspiration on how to decorate the house when she stumbled upon an article about adoption. She had thought about adoption before during the darkest days of her infertility treatments, but she had never seriously considered it, until now. The idea sparked something in her, a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, she would still have the family she had always dreamed of. She began researching the process, reading about the challenges, the joys, and the lives of children waiting for someone to bring them home. Katie's heart swelled as she looked at pictures of children from all over the world, each one with a story, each one deserving of love. Could she really do this? Could she open her heart and home to a child in need? With a mixture of excitement and fear, Katie decided to take the first step. She contacted an adoption agency and began the long, arduous process of paperwork, home inspections, and background checks. There were days when it felt overwhelming and doubts crept into her mind. Would she be a good mother? Could she handle the responsibility of raising a child on her own? But each time she felt the weight of those questions pressing down on her, she reminded herself why she was doing this. She had love to give, and there was a child out there who needed that love. Months passed, and slowly but surely, Katie moved through the steps of the adoption process. She attended workshops, met with social workers, and joined support groups for adoptive parents. Every step brought her closer to her dream, and with each passing day, the idea of becoming a mother felt less like a distant hope and more like a tangible reality. Then one day, the call came. Katie was in the kitchen, organizing some documents when her phone rang. It was the adoption agency. Her heart raced as she picked up the phone, her hands trembling slightly. "Hello," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Hi, Katie. This is Sarah from the agency." The voice on the other end said warmly, "We have some exciting news for you. There are two siblings, a boy and a girl, who have recently become available for adoption. They've been through a lot, but we think they would thrive in a loving home like yours." Katie's breath caught in her throat. 2 children? She hadn't been expecting that. But something about the idea felt right. A boy and a girl, siblings who had been through their own hardships, now needing a place to call home. "Tell me more about them," Katie said, her voice barely above a whisper. Sarah explained that the children, Max and Lily, were both under the age of 5. They had been removed from their biological parents due to neglect and had spent the last year in foster care. The foster parents had been kind, but they weren't able to adopt the children themselves, and so the agency was searching for a permanent home. "They've had a rough start in life," Sarah continued, "but they're resilient, sweet kids. We believe they would do well in a stable, loving environment. Are you interested in meeting them?" Katie didn't hesitate. "Yes," she said firmly. "I want to meet them." A week later, Katie found herself driving to the foster home where Max and Lily were staying. Her heart pounded with nervous anticipation as she pulled into the driveway, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. She had no idea what to expect, but she knew in her heart that this was the beginning of something life-changing. When she walked into the house, she was greeted by the foster mother, a kind woman in her 50s named Margaret. "They're playing in the backyard," Margaret said with a smile, leading Katie through the house. As they stepped outside, Katie saw them. Max, a small boy with sandy blonde hair, was pushing a toy truck through the grass, while Lily, a little girl with dark brown curls, sat quietly beside him, watching intently. They looked up as Katie approached, their eyes wide with curiosity. "Hi," Katie said softly, kneeling down to their level. "I'm Katie." Max looked at her for a moment, then went back to his truck, but Lily stared at her, her expression serious. Katie felt her heart swell with emotion. These were the children she had been waiting for, even though she hadn't known it. This was the beginning of their story together, a new family, forged in love, hope, and the promise of brighter days ahead. Meeting Max and Lily, Katie's heart raced as she knelt on the grass, looking into Lily's wide brown eyes. The little girl, no more than 3 years old, clutched a worn stuffed bunny tightly to her chest. She didn't smile or move, her gaze steady and curious. Katie felt the weight of this moment, knowing how fragile it was for both of them. Max, who was about 4, barely glanced her way as he continued to push his toy truck across the grass. His blonde hair flopped into his eyes, and his lips were pressed into a thin, concentrated line. Katie sensed that Max had built walls around himself, small, invisible fortresses that protected him from the uncertainty of adults coming and going. She knew that breaking through to him would take time. The foster mother, Margaret, stood a few feet away, watching the interaction with a kind smile. "They're good kids," she said quietly, as if to reassure Katie. "They've been through a lot, but they're strong. Max is a bit of a loner, but Lily is usually more open once she warms up." Katie nodded, trying to keep her emotions in check. She didn't want to rush this moment, but everything inside her was screaming to scoop them up and promise them a safe, loving home. But she knew that trust wasn't something that could be forced. It had to be earned. Lily continued to watch her, her little hand absent-mindedly stroking the stuffed bunny's ear. Katie smiled softly at her. "Is that your bunny?" she asked, her voice gentle. Lily blinked, her small body shifting ever so slightly. For a moment, Katie thought she wouldn't respond, but then, in a barely audible whisper, she said, "His name's Bunny." Katie chuckled softly, her heart fluttering at the sound of Lily's tiny voice. "Bunny's a good name," she said, her voice full of warmth. "He looks like a very special friend." Lily nodded, still clutching the bunny close. Katie could see the hesitation in her, a wariness that spoke volumes about the little girl's past. She wondered what had happened to these two children to make them so guarded, so careful with their emotions. Max, on the other hand, was completely engrossed in his toy truck, pushing it through the grass as if the world around him didn't exist. Katie glanced at him, feeling a pang of sadness. She wanted so badly to connect with him, but she knew it would take time. "Max," she said softly, trying not to startle him. The boy didn't look up. His little hands gripped the truck tightly, his movements almost mechanical. Katie didn't push. She simply sat there, giving him the space he seemed to need. Margaret crouched down beside Katie. "He's a tough nut to crack," she whispered. "But once you get through, he's got the biggest heart." Katie smiled gratefully at Margaret before turning back to the children. She didn't know how long it would take for them to open up to her, but she was willing to be patient. She had waited a long time to be a mother, and she wasn't going to give up now. "Can you lick trucks, Max?" she asked after a few moments, hoping to engage him without overwhelming him. Max paused, his hand still resting on the toy truck. He glanced at her from the corner of his eye but didn't say anything. Katie took that as a small victory. At least he had acknowledged her presence. Lily, still holding her bunny, scooted a little closer to Katie, her tiny body relaxing just a bit. "Bunny's scared of trucks," she whispered, as if sharing a secret. Katie's heart melted. "Is he?" "Well, maybe we can help him feel brave," she said, her voice soft and encouraging. Lily looked at her for a long moment, then, to Katie's surprise, she held out Bunny toward her. "Can you make him brave?" It was such a small gesture, but it felt monumental. Katie took the worn stuffed animal gently, as if it were the most precious thing in the world. She held Bunny close to her heart, smiling at Lily. "I think Bunny's already brave, just like you." Lily smiled for the first time, a small, shy smile that made Katie's heart swell with emotion. The little girl's eyes sparkled for just a moment, a glimpse of the trust Katie so desperately hoped to build. Margaret, standing nearby, beamed. "Looks like she's warming up to you." Katie felt tears prick the corners of her eyes but blinked them away. She didn't want to rush this moment or overwhelm the children with her emotions, but it was hard not to feel the wave at all. She had spent so many nights dreaming of becoming a mother, and now here she was, sitting in the grass with two children who might one day call her mom. Max, however, was still distant. He continued to play with his truck, his movements slow and deliberate. Katie wanted to reach out to him, but she knew that he needed time. She didn't want to scare him or push him away. "Max, would you like to show me how your truck works?" she asked, keeping her voice calm and inviting. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't respond. But then, without looking at her, Max rolled the truck toward her feet. He didn't say a word, but the gesture was enough to make Katie's heart leap. It wasn't much, but it was a start, a small crack in the walls he had built around himself. Katie smiled and gently pushed the truck back toward him. "That's a cool truck, Max," she said, her tone full of warmth. "Maybe we can play together sometime." Max didn't respond, but he took the truck and continued playing, his little brow furrowed in concentration. Katie watched him for a moment, feeling both hopeful and heartbroken at the same time. She wanted so badly to connect with him, but she knew that he was carrying a lot of pain for someone so young. Lily, meanwhile, had moved even closer to Katie, her small body practically leaning against her. Katie glanced down at the little girl, her heart swelling with love. She could see the spark of trust in Lily's eyes, and it gave her hope that with time she could build that same trust with Max. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm golden glow over the backyard. Margaret stepped forward, her voice gentle. "We should probably head inside soon. It's getting late, and these two will need dinner and a bath." Katie nodded, feeling a pang of sadness at the thought of leaving. But she knew this wasn't goodbye. This was just the beginning. As they made their way back toward the house, Katie felt Lily slip her small hand into hers. The warmth of that tiny hand in her own brought tears to her eyes. It was such a simple gesture, but to Katie, it meant everything. Max, still holding his truck, walked a few steps ahead, his small figure silhouetted against the fading light. Katie watched him, her heart aching with the desire to reach him, to show him that he was safe now, that he didn't have to be alone anymore. But she knew that building trust with Max would take time she was more than willing to give. As they reached the house, Katie knelt down beside Lily, brushing a strand of hair from the little girl's face. "I'll see you again soon, okay?" she said softly. Lily nodded, her big brown eyes looking up at her with a mix of curiosity and trust. "Okay," she whispered. Katie smiled, feeling the weight of that simple word settle in her heart. She stood up, giving Max one last glance before heading to her car. As she drove away, the image of Max and Lily stayed with her, filling her with a sense of hope and determination. This was just the beginning. She had found her children, and now it was up to her to build the family they all so desperately needed. Learning to trust. The weeks after Katie's first meeting with Max and Lily were filled with cautious optimism. Every visit brought new challenges, but also small victories. Katie had been warned that fostering, let alone adopting, two young children would be difficult, but no one could have prepared her for the emotional roller coaster she now found herself riding. Still, she was determined to give Max and Lily the loving home they deserved. Katie had become a familiar face at Margaret's house. The foster home, once an intimidating place full of uncertainty, was now where Katie spent most of her afternoons. She had started bringing small gifts, a picture book for Lily, a toy truck for Max, but her real focus was on building trust piece by piece. On one particular afternoon, Katie arrived with a box of art supplies. She had noticed how much Lily loved to doodle on napkins during snack time, and she hoped this would be a fun way to bond. As she set the box on the kitchen table, Lily's eyes lit up. "What's that?" Lily asked, her voice small but filled with curiosity. Katie knelt down beside her, opening the box slowly, revealing crayons, markers, colored pencils, and construction paper. "I thought we could draw together. What do you think?" Lily reached for a crayon, her tiny hand hesitating for just a moment before she selected a bright pink one. "I like pink," she said softly, her eyes darting between Katie and the crayon. "I love pink too," Katie said, pulling out a sheet of paper for Lily. She sat down beside her and began to draw a simple flower, the petals large and round, the stem a bright green. Lily watched her closely, then mimicked her movements, drawing her own version of the flower, the petals uneven but full of effort. For the next hour, they drew together. Katie noticed how relaxed Lily had become, her little face concentrated as she picked new colors and shapes. But as much as Lily was opening up, Max remained distant. He sat on the floor nearby, playing with his truck, his back turned to the table. Katie's heart ached every time she glanced at him, but she didn't want to push him. Max would come to her when he was ready, at least that's what she kept telling herself. After a while, Margaret came into the kitchen, drying her hands on a towel. "You're working your magic, I see," she said with a smile, nodding toward Lily. Katie smiled, but her thoughts remained on Max. "I wish I could reach him too," she admitted, her voice low so Max wouldn't hear. Margaret leaned against the counter, her expression thoughtful. "He's been through a lot, more than most kids his age. He'll take time." Katie nodded, knowing that Margaret was right, but the waiting was harder than she had imagined. Every time she looked at Max, she saw a little boy who had built up walls so high it seemed impossible to break through. She just wanted to tell him he was safe, that he didn't have to be afraid anymore, but she couldn't force that realization. It had to come from him. Lily, who had been quietly coloring beside her, suddenly spoke up. Max doesn't like to talk, she said, her voice matter of fact. Katie looked at her, surprised by the statement. Why do you think that is? She asked gently, not wanting to push too hard but curious about Lily's perspective. Lily shrugged, still focused on her drawing. He's scared. Katie's heart clenched. What is he scared of, sweetie? Lily paused, her crayon hovering above the paper. She looked up at Katie with wide eyes, her expression serious. People go away. Max doesn't like it when people go away. Katie swallowed hard, her throat tightening at the weight of Lily's words. She hadn't expected such insight from someone so young, but it made sense. Max and Lily had likely seen more people come and go in their short lives than anyone should ever have to experience. Foster care was often a revolving door of caregivers, and each goodbye left another scar. I'm not going anywhere, Katie said softly, her eyes shifting between Lily and Max. I promise. Lily looked at her for a long moment as if weighing Katie's words. Then, without saying anything, she went back to her drawing. Katie hoped that somewhere deep inside, Lily had heard her and believed her. The afternoon continued, and though Max remained distant, there was a small change. When it was time for Katie to leave, Max didn't stay hidden in his corner like he usually did. Instead, he stood near the door, his little truck clutched tightly in his hand. He didn't say goodbye, but the fact that he was there, watching her leave, felt like progress. A week later, Katie's patience was tested in a way she hadn't anticipated. It had been a long day at work, and all she could think about was seeing Max and Lily. They had slowly become the center of her world, and even though the adoption process was still moving forward, there was always a fear in the back of her mind that something could go wrong. The thought of losing them terrified her more than she cared to admit. When she arrived at Margaret's, however, she was met with an unexpected scene. Max was in the middle of a meltdown. The moment Katie walked through the door, she could hear him screaming from the living room. His cries were loud, desperate, and full of frustration. Margaret, looking exhausted, met Katie at the door. He's been like this for the last hour, she explained, rubbing her temples. I think something triggered him, but I'm not sure what. Katie's heart dropped. She had read about trauma responses in children, especially those in foster care, but seeing it in real life was different. Max's cries were piercing, his little body trembling with emotion. He was inconsolable, and nothing Margaret had tried seemed to work. Without a word, Katie moved toward him. Max was on the floor, his face red and tear-streaked, his fists pounding the carpet in frustration. His toy truck lay forgotten beside him, the wheels spinning uselessly. Katie knelt down beside him, unsure if he would even let her get close. Max, she said softly, her voice steady but full of concern. Max, it's okay. I'm here. He didn't respond. His cries grew louder and tried to push her away, his small hands shoving against her legs. But Katie didn't move. She stayed right there, letting him release whatever pain and anger he was feeling. Margaret watched from the doorway, her expression a mix of exhaustion and concern. I'd never seen him like this, she murmured. I don't know what set him off. Katie glanced at her, then back at Max. It's okay, she whispered again, though she wasn't sure if she was saying it for Max's sake or her own. For what felt like an eternity, Max continued to cry, his body shaking with the intensity of his emotions. But Katie stayed with him, not saying much, just being present. She knew that sometimes words didn't help. Sometimes what a child needed most was someone who wouldn't leave, no matter how hard things got. Eventually, Max's cries began to soften. His little body sagged with exhaustion, and his breathing became shallow, hiccup gasps. Katie gently reached out, placing a hand on his back. She expected him to flinch, to pull away, but to her surprise, he didn't. He let her hand rest there, the weight of it calming him, even just a little. After a few more moments, Max finally looked up at her, his eyes puffy and red from crying. Katie smiled softly, her heart aching for this little boy who had been through so much. I'm not going anywhere, she whispered again. Max didn't say anything, but for the first time, Katie saw something shift in his eyes. It wasn't trust, not yet, but it was a beginning. A small crack in the walls he had built. Katie stayed with him until he fell asleep, his small body curled up on the couch. As she sat there, watching him breathe peacefully, she realized just how much she had fallen in love with these two children. They weren't hers yet, not legally, but in her heart, they had already claimed a place that no one else could fill. As the sun set outside, casting long shadows across the living room, Katie felt a sense of peace wash over her. She didn't know what challenges tomorrow would bring, but for now she was content. She wasn't going anywhere. Building bridges, Katie's determination to create a loving and stable environment for Max and Lily was unwavering, but the road ahead was still fraught with challenges. The days following Max's emotional outbursts were both hopeful and taxing. Katie continued to foster a connection with both children, but she knew the journey was far from over. With Grayson now a part of her life and her bond with Max and Lily growing stronger each day, Katie felt a sense of fulfillment. However, she also faced a mounting challenge: her commitment to making their house truly feel like a home. Each day presented new obstacles, from navigating Max's ongoing adjustment issues to ensuring that Grayson received the medical attention he needed. One crisp autumn morning, Katie decided it was time for a fresh start. The house, though lovingly restored, still felt a little impersonal. The walls were adorned with neutral colors, and there was a distinct lack of warmth. She wanted to create a space where her children would feel safe and cherished, a space that reflected the love and care she poured into their lives. The plan was to convert the small, unused room upstairs into a playroom for Max and Lily. Katie envisioned it as a vibrant and inviting space, a sanctuary where the children could explore, create, and simply be kids. She spent the morning at the local hardware store, choosing bright colors for the walls and picking out playful, durable furnishings. When Katie returned home, her heart swelled with excitement. She set up a small workstation in the playroom and began painting the walls a cheerful shade of sky blue. As she worked, she imagined Max and Lily's faces lighting up at the sight of the new room. Every stroke of the brush felt like a step toward making their dreams a reality. A few days later, the playroom was finally finished. Katie had added colorful rugs, shelves full of books and toys, and a large window seat with soft cushions. The transformation was remarkable. The room was now a vibrant haven, brimming with potential for laughter and joy. That evening, she invited Max and Lily to see their new playroom. They entered cautiously, their eyes wide with wonder. Max's mouth dropped open as he took in the colorful walls and shelves lined with toys. Lily's face lit up with a beaming smile as she spotted the window seat, her favorite new place to sit and read. Katie knelt down beside them, her heart racing with anticipation. "What do you think?" she asked, her voice filled with excitement. Max tentatively walked over to a box of toy trucks, picking one up and examining it with newfound interest. Lily immediately flopped down onto the window seat, grabbing a book and starting to flip through the pages with delight. "It's amazing," Lily said, her voice full of awe. "Can we play here every day?" "Of course," Katie replied, her eyes sparkling with joy. "This is your space. You can do anything you want here." Over the next few weeks, the playroom became a favorite spot for Max and Lily. They spent hours building towering structures with blocks, pretending to be adventurers in fantastical lands, and curling up with books. Katie found herself joining in their games, her laughter blending with theirs, creating a sense of normalcy and happiness that had been absent for too long. However, despite the progress, Katie was acutely aware that Max still had walls built around him, walls that were not so easily dismantled. His progress was slower than she had hoped. While he was more relaxed in the playroom and enjoyed the new toys, he remained hesitant to open up emotionally. Katie knew she needed to find another way to connect with him, something that would help him feel more secure. She decided to reach out to a child psychologist who specialized in trauma and attachment issues. Dr. Emily Carter had a reputation for helping children like Max, and Katie hoped she could offer some guidance. Dr. Carter agreed to meet with Katie and Max for an initial consultation. As Katie arrived at Dr. Carter's office, she felt a mixture of hope and anxiety. She had heard so many success stories but worried about whether Max would respond positively. Dr. Carter greeted Katie warmly and led her to a comfortable office where she had set up a few toys and art supplies. "Hello, Max," she said with a gentle smile. "I'm Dr. Carter. I'm here to help you feel better. Would you like to play with some toys or draw with me?" Max, still hesitant, glanced at Katie for reassurance. Katie nodded encouragingly, and Max slowly approached a table of toys. He picked up a small figurine and began to fidget with it, but he didn't say much. Dr. Carter was patient, gently engaging Max in conversation through play. She introduced him to a puppet and began to create a simple story, gradually drawing Max into the narrative. As the session progressed, Max began to open up, sharing a few words about his favorite toys and activities. It was a small step, but it was progress. Katie watched from the sidelines, her heart full of gratitude for Dr. Carter's skill and patience. She knew that rebuilding Max's trust and helping him process his past would be a long journey, but she was committed to walking that path with him. Back at home, Katie continued to focus on building trust with Max. She made a conscious effort to be more present and attentive, always offering a listening ear and a warm embrace. Her bond with Lily was growing stronger as well. They spent time reading together, baking cookies, and enjoying simple pleasures. Katie also made sure to take care of herself. She had learned from her support group that self-care was crucial for maintaining her own well-being, so she took time for herself each week, whether it was a quiet walk in the park or a relaxing bath. It was a small but important way to recharge and stay grounded. One chilly December evening, Katie decided to have a special family night. She made hot cocoa and set up a cozy spot in the living room with blankets and pillows. They watched a classic holiday movie together, and for the first time, Katie felt a sense of contentment she hadn't experienced in years. Max and Lily snuggled close to her, their little heads resting on her shoulders. Max, who had been more relaxed lately, leaned into her side, his small hand grasping hers. Katie could feel the warmth of his trust, a quiet, reassuring sign that they were moving in the right direction. As the movie played, Katie looked around at her little family and felt a profound sense of fulfillment. She knew that their journey was far from over, but in that moment, surrounded by laughter and warmth, she felt a deep sense of peace. She had come a long way from the woman who had first walked through the doors of Margaret's house, and she was grateful for every step of the journey. The playroom was more than just a colorful space. It was a symbol of hope and new beginnings. Max and Lily's laughter was the melody of her life, and Grayson's tiny milestones were the notes that completed the song. Each day was a testament to the love and dedication she poured into their lives, and with each challenge, she felt herself growing stronger, more resilient. Katie knew there would be more obstacles ahead, but she was ready to face them head-on. For Max, Lily, and Grayson, she would continue to build bridges of trust, love, and hope, one day at a time. Shattered illusions and new beginnings. Winter had settled into the Colorado landscape, painting the world in shades of white and gray. The snow-covered streets and frosted windows added a serene, almost magical quality to Katie's life. Yet beneath this picturesque veneer lay a storm of challenges that tested her resolve and her newfound family's strength. One quiet January afternoon, as Katie was preparing lunch for Max and Lily, the phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID and saw it was Dr. Carter. With a mix of apprehension and hope, Katie answered the call. "Hello, Katie." Dr. Carter's voice was calm but serious. "I want to discuss something important with you about Max. Can we schedule a time to meet?" Katie's heart skipped a beat. She quickly agreed to an appointment for the following day, her mind racing with possible scenarios. That evening, she found herself unable to concentrate on her usual tasks, her thoughts consumed by worry over Max's progress. The next day, Katie arrived at Dr. Carter's office early, her hands clammy and her heart heavy. Dr. Carter welcomed her with a reassuring smile and led her into a private room. "Thank you for coming in, Katie." Dr. Carter began gently. "I've been reviewing Max's recent sessions and observed some concerning patterns. It seems that he is struggling with deeper emotional issues than we initially anticipated." Katie's stomach tightened. "What kind of issues?" she asked, her voice trembling. Dr. Carter took a deep breath. "Max has been showing signs of severe anxiety and attachment issues. His behavior indicates that he's still grappling with his past trauma, which is affecting his interactions with you and Lily. We need to address these issues more intensively." Katie nodded, trying to process the information. "What can we do to help him?" Dr. Carter's expression softened. "We need to consider more targeted therapeutic interventions. This might involve specialized counseling for Max and possibly family therapy to strengthen your bond with him. It's crucial to address these issues as early as possible to help him feel more secure." Katie felt a pang of helplessness, but also a surge of determination. She knew that Max's well-being was paramount and was willing to do whatever it took to help him heal. Over the next few weeks, Katie worked closely with Dr. Carter to arrange for specialized therapy for Max. They also began family therapy sessions to work on improving communication and emotional connections within the household. Max's first few therapy sessions were challenging. He was reluctant to open up and often shut down during discussions. However, Dr. Carter was patient, using various techniques to gently coax him out of his shell. One method that seemed to work was play therapy, where Max could express his feelings through creative activities rather than direct conversation. Katie attended every session with Max, learning how to support him more effectively and how to create a nurturing environment at home. She found solace in the fact that despite the difficulties, Max was making small but meaningful strides. Lily, too, was affected by the changes. The family therapy sessions helped her understand more about Max's struggles, and she began to show increased empathy and patience toward him. Katie also made a concerted effort to spend one-on-one time with Lily, reinforcing their bond and making sure she felt valued and loved. Meanwhile, Katie continued to focus on Grayson's well-being. His progress had been steady but slow. His health was improving, and he was becoming more active and alert. However, Katie remained vigilant, attending regular checkups and seeking advice from pediatric specialists to ensure Grayson's continued development. One day, after a particularly trying week of therapy and appointments, Katie decided to take Max and Lily on a small adventure. She hoped to change the scenery, and some fun would offer a much-needed break from their routine. They drove to a nearby nature reserve where a winter wonderland awaited them. The snow-covered trees and glistening icicles created a magical atmosphere. Katie watched as Max and Lily excitedly raced around, their laughter ringing out in the crisp air. Max, who had been more open and engaged in therapy, seemed to genuinely enjoy himself. He built snow forts and threw snowballs with Lily, his earlier anxieties temporarily forgotten. Katie felt a surge of relief and joy as she observed them, realizing that these moments of happiness were important milestones in their journey. After their day in the snow, they returned home tired but exhilarated. Katie prepared a hearty dinner, and the family gathered around the table. The warmth of the meal and the camaraderie of shared experiences created an atmosphere of comfort and connection. As they ate, Max looked up from his plate, his eyes reflecting a sense of contentment. "Thanks for taking us out today," he said softly. "It was really fun." Katie's heart swelled with gratitude. "I'm glad you enjoyed it, Max. We'll have more adventures together, I promise." The days following their nature excursion were marked by continued progress. Max's therapy sessions were becoming more productive, and he was beginning to open up more. The family therapy also helped Katie and Max develop better communication strategies, allowing them to express their feelings and needs more effectively. Katie found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this point. The road had been challenging, filled with moments of doubt and difficulty. Yet through perseverance and love, they had managed to overcome many obstacles. One day, as Katie was organizing a small family photo album, she came across pictures of the early days with Max and Lily. She was struck by how far they had come. The images captured their initial struggles and the gradual emergence of joy and stability. In the final pages of the album, Katie placed a recent photo of their family, smiling, happy, and united. It was a symbol of their resilience and the loving home they had created together. As she looked at the photo, Katie felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The challenges were far from over, but she knew that with each day they were building a stronger, more cohesive family. Their journey was ongoing, but it was marked by hope, love, and an unwavering commitment to one another. Katie closed the album with a smile, ready to face whatever came next with the strength and determination that had become a cornerstone of her life. The future was bright, filled with the promise of continued growth and the unbreakable bonds that held her family together. The horizon of hope. Spring had begun to breathe new life into the Colorado landscape, melting away the heavy blanket of winter. The snowdrops and crocuses that dotted the garden brought a sense of renewal and possibility. For Katie, this season symbolized not just a change in weather, but a new chapter in her family's journey. The months of therapy and adjustment had begun to yield tangible results. Max was more open and engaged, his previously withdrawn demeanor giving way to a brighter, more hopeful outlook. Lily continued to blossom, her creativity and compassion growing with each passing day. Grayson, now an energetic toddler, was hitting developmental milestones with the steady support of Katie's care. Yet amidst the progress, Katie knew that their journey was not simply about overcoming challenges. It was also about embracing opportunities and creating a future where her children could thrive. This realization led Katie to think about long-term goals for her family, and she felt a deep sense of responsibility and hope. One warm April morning, as the sun filtered through the new buds on the trees, Katie made her way to the local community center. She had been attending various workshops and support groups there, and this day marked an important step. She was participating in a community outreach event focused on foster care and adoption. Katie had been invited to share her story, an opportunity to inspire others who were considering adoption or who were in the midst of their own journeys. She had spent weeks preparing, reflecting on the experiences that had shaped her path and the lessons she had learned along the way. As she stood before the gathering, a mixture of excitement and nerves bubbled within her. The audience, composed of prospective parents, social workers, and community members, looked at her with anticipation. Katie took a deep breath and began to speak. "Good morning, everyone. My name is Katie, and I'm here to share a bit about my journey to becoming a mother and the experiences that have shaped my family's story." Katie recounted her journey from the initial heartbreak of infertility to the decision to adopt. She spoke about the challenges of integrating Max and Lily into her home, the struggles they faced, and the progress they had made together. She shared candidly about the emotional roller coaster and the sense of purpose that had driven her forward. Throughout her talk, Katie emphasized the importance of patience, empathy, and support. She spoke about the role of community and how the support groups and therapy had been instrumental in her family's healing process. Her words resonated deeply with the audience, many of whom were nodding in agreement or wiping away tears. After her presentation, Katie engaged in a Q&A session, answering questions and offering advice based on her experiences. The interactions were heartfelt and enriching, and Katie felt a profound sense of fulfillment in being able to help others through her story. Returning home, Katie was greeted by the familiar, loving chaos of her household. Max and Lily were busy playing in their revamped playroom, and Grayson was exploring with boundless energy. Katie watched them with a heart full of gratitude, recognizing the remarkable progress they had made as a family. That evening, Katie decided to take the family out for a celebratory dinner. They went to a cozy, family-friendly restaurant that had recently opened in their neighborhood. As they settled into their booth, the children chattered excitedly about the day's adventures, and Katie felt a profound sense of contentment. The meal was filled with laughter and conversation, and for the first time, Katie felt a sense of normalcy and joy that had eluded her in the past. The challenges had been formidable, but they had also brought her family closer together. They had learned to navigate the complexities of their lives with resilience and love. As they left the restaurant, Katie noticed a small flyer on a community bulletin board. It was an invitation to participate in a local charity event supporting children in foster care. The event was aimed at raising awareness and funds for children in need, and Katie felt a spark of inspiration. The following weeks were busy with preparations for the charity event. Katie, Max, and Lily volunteered their time and efforts to help organize and promote the event. They designed flyers, set up donation stations, and even contributed baked goods for a fundraising sale. Grayson, always eager to be involved, helped with the smaller tasks and added his own touch of charm. The day of the charity event arrived, and it was a resounding success. The community rallied together, and the event raised significant funds for children in foster care. Katie felt a deep sense of pride and accomplishment as she watched the positive impact of their efforts. It was a reminder that their journey was part of a larger tapestry of support and change. As the event concluded, Katie took a moment to reflect on the path she had traveled. The road had been long and arduous, filled with moments of doubt and difficulty. Yet it had also been marked by incredible growth, both for herself and for her children. Max had made significant strides, developing healthier emotional responses and building stronger relationships. Lily had continued to thrive, her creativity and compassion shining brightly. Grayson had grown into a happy and healthy toddler, his early challenges now a distant memory. Katie knew that their journey was far from over. There would be more challenges to face and more milestones to reach. But she also knew that they had built a solid foundation of love, trust, and resilience. Her family was stronger than ever, and their future was filled with promise and hope. As she looked out over the community she had come to cherish, Katie felt a profound sense of gratitude. The support of friends, family, and the larger community had been instrumental in their journey. Together, they had created a vibrant, loving home, a place where each member of her family could flourish. In the quiet moments of reflection, Katie found solace in the knowledge that their story was one of transformation and hope. She had faced the challenges of adoption with courage and determination, and in doing so had discovered the true meaning of family. With a heart full of hope and a spirit renewed, Katie embraced the horizon of their future. The road ahead was unknown, but she faced it with the confidence that their love and strength would guide them through whatever came next. For Katie and her family, every new day was an opportunity to build upon the foundation they had created and to continue their journey toward a brighter, more fulfilling life.